Hello everyone, welcome to my session. My name is Samuel Baruffi and I am a Principal Solutions Architect with AWS. I'm very excited to talk to you today about AgentCore. AgentCore is a new AWS offering, which is a set of functionality and primitives that allows you to build very quickly and powerful production-grade agents. The name of my talk today is From POC to Production, Shipping Enterprise AI Agents with Amazon Bedrock AgentCore. Without further ado, let's get started. When we talked about agentic AI, things have moved very quickly in the last couple of years. But when ChatGPT and smaller previous large language models were released back in 2022, one of the very common things that were being released was generative AI assistants. So chatbots that could maybe respond to you, but do very little. Moving that, you have created in the industry a lot of generative AI agents. So you can achieve a single goal. Maybe there is one or a few tools available for the agent, and you could automate specific workflows. And what we are talking about now and the future of agentic AI is agentic AI systems that can operate fully autonomous. It can have conversation across multiple agents. And now, rather than just automating a specific workflow, it can mimic the whole human logic and reasoning. Of course, with still human in the loop for security, verification, anti-hallucination, and so forth. The whole idea is to increase productivity and business values for our customers. A very interesting stats from 2024, 33% of enterprise software's applications will actually include agentic AI by 2028, which are up from less than 1% in 2024. So you can see in 4 years, 1/3 of applications will include agentic AI, and we can now already see this trend that has been very quickly evolving in 2025. These are also both researchers based from and created by Gartner. Another research was that 15% of the day-to-day work decisions will be made autonomous through agentic AI by 2028. There are pros and cons to that, and we're going to talk about some of the capabilities that can help you with it. Here are some agentic AI use cases across different industries. Each industry will be able to apply agent and agentic AI systems at the different levels of utilization and productivity. But let's say you are part of the healthcare, you can do a lot of the patient and member engagement automation that before always required a lot of humans in the back end. Now you can automate and make those humans way more productive with the automation of agents. What is the AWS vision for agents? The vision is to provide the best place for you to build the most useful agents for your specific vertical to solve the best and most important use cases that will help your customer improve customer expectation, potentially bring down the cost, and few other benefits that agentic AI bring to the system. And the vision for AWS is for you to be able to deploy those agents while empowering different organizations within your company to deploy those reliable, securable, and scalable agents on AWS. So that's the vision. How do we do that? First, we focus on the fundamentals. 4 very important pillars of the fundamentals are, we want to use state-of-the-art science. So Amazon has a big science team, and we put a lot of science work on building Bedrock AgentCore. And you're going to see that a lot of the features built on AgentCore are very common requested features when companies are building agents in production. Secondly, as very typical AWS fashion, we want to provide best-in-class infrastructure for you to build and run those agents. And we want to manage that for you and make it easy for you to manage and invoke agents. Third is, we want to be the best place for you to deploy specialized agents. And when I talk about specialized agents, I'm talking about your magic sauce. What makes your business unique? How can you move some of that magic specialized knowledge into specialized agents and make your productivity boost. And fourth, provide intuitive experience so anyone can build and use powerful agents. So that is the fundamentals that AgentCore was set to help. Now, before we talked about AgentCore, it's important for us to take a step back and realize the broadest set of services that AWS offers for customers to build and deploy agents. We have applications such as QDev, Kiro, which are a set of applications that help developers build code and have agentic capabilities. So you can use generative AI agents to help be your co-programmer and help you actually accelerate the productivity as developers. But we also focus for business, so you have Q Business and multiple features that have generative AI capabilities within AWS services. Then you have some tools for building AI agents, such as Bedrock Marketplace, Bedrock Agents, Strands, Nova Act SDK, and many others. We're going to talk about some of those as we move forward. Here, the important thing to highlight is Bedrock Agents has existed for almost 2 years now, but Bedrock Agents is actually different than Bedrock AgentCore. Bedrock Agent is a more opinionated way for you to deploy agents, where AgentCore is this new set of primitives that brings a lot of flexibility and new functionality for you to build on top of. That's just one important aspect that you should be aware. When you look at the AI stack, we're not going to talk about that in depth, but we have a lot of chipsets, our own chipsets. We have NVIDIA chipsets, we have AMD, we have a service called SageMaker AI. So if you want to actually go and build your own models, you should be able to do that. But you also have a lot of the fundamentals of large language models available for you on demand with foundational models on Bedrock. So you can use Anthropic Claude models, you can use Nova models, you can use MetaLlama models, and many other models available on Bedrock. And we're going to mostly focus on the rest of the presentation on AgentCore, which is a set of primitives that allows you to build production-grade agents. So what is AgentCore and how does it actually work? The whole idea is we kept hearing from customers in the last year, a couple of months, that they're building a lot of agent POCs, but the really challenge was from moving from a POC that was running locally on a development laptop from a specific developer to actually making that widely available within the ecosystem of the company and also production ready. And the challenge to get to production are, how do you manage performance? How do you manage scalability? How do you manage security? And how do you have proper governance? With all those 4 pillars, if you have a way to create a solution that you can deploy on top of, you are going to get way closer to your AI production agents. So let's now go and talk about some of the different primitives that AgentCore have available for you to use. So the first primitive is called AgentCore Runtime. AgentCore Runtime you can think of as the compute where your agents can run. You can scale from 0 agent invocation now to as many as you want. It gets invoked with very low latency. When you create an agent on AgentCore Runtime, you have a way to invoke those agents through APIs. Those single agent invocations can last for up to 8 hours or less, and you pay for as much as you are consuming within those session invocations. It supports different payloads across different modalities. So if you have an agent that requires different modalities like images, you can also provide. But the idea is this serverless agentic compute environment for you to run. One of the things I should have mentioned before, and I can mention later on, is the whole thing with AgentCore is the ability for you to pick and choose different primitives. One primitive is AgentCore Runtime, and use only the primitives you want. So you're not buying into the whole ecosystem if you don't want to. You can bring bits and pieces of what you care to actually build your agents. And with AgentCore Runtime, you can actually deploy any agent using pretty much any framework, either some familiar open source frameworks, or actually build your own framework as well. With a very few lines of code, you can get a runtime up and running, and then you can invoke your agent that is running on the cloud. You also have security by default. So we have true session isolation to protect your customer data, and integrates very easily with identity provider. We're going to talk about AgentCore identity, but by integrating there, you can have a proper authorization and authentication systems using OAuth 2.0 that it can connect to your AgentCore runtime in order to invoke when you need to. How does it work behind the scenes? You build your agent. Your agent can be using any framework, Strands, LangGraph, LangChain, CrewAI, your own proprietary framework. You can use any models. It can be Bedrock models, it can be Gemini models, it can be OpenAI models. It doesn't really matter. AgentCore runtime allows you to pick and choose whatever model you want to use. And then you bring in the AgentCore runtime decorator. You provide some observability configuration if you want to use AgentCore observability. And if you want to do identity, you also bring that. Behind the scenes, the way it works, you create a Docker file. That Docker file gets stored into a registry, a ECR repository, and then you create an agent within AgentCore runtime. And every time you have a user, the user will invoke that endpoint where you have your agent deployed. And behind the scenes, we'll actually create the compute environment for you with true session isolation. One important aspect to highlight with AgentCore is AgentCore runtime allows you to roast agents like Strands, LangGraph agents. Those are using the HTTP protocol, but AgentCore runtime also have a different capability, which is the ability for you to host a remote MCP server automatically for you. So you can create exactly like here, you'd create a Docker file, but rather than using LangGraph framework, you'd be using maybe fast MCP, and you deploy that on AgentCore runtime, and behind the scenes, AgentCore runtime supports the ability to actually talk MCP protocol. I don't have the slides here, but that is one of the capabilities as well. Another important aspect of building agent is the ability for you to create identity. So once I have an agent, there are a couple of things I want to do with the agent. How can I enable agents to be using and being invoked properly? Let's say I have an account into an agent and I want to make sure that only specific groups within that system are able to invoke that agent. Let's say I have my application built using third-party tools such as Google, Salesforce, or Slack, and I want to give access to my agent to use that specific systems, right? AgentCore identity does multiple things, and I'll show you in the next slide. But the whole idea of AgentCore identity is to minimize the amount of work that it takes for you to secure both the inbound authentication, so when you're calling an agent, and also when the agent itself needs to call third-party tools like Google in order to grab some data from maybe your Google Drive into the agent run specifically, right? So it's trying to streamline your authentication flows. What it allows you to do is to accelerate AI agent development, because there will be a lot of set of pre-built primitives that you can use from AgentCore identity. Like you can use your existing identity systems such as Okta, Azure AD, Amazon Cognito, and any other that are supporting OAuth 2.0 flow. And the end goal here is to lower custom development efforts without needing to migrate users for this specific credential system or identity system. So how does it actually work? You have a user. That user needs to authenticate to a system. It can be using either IAM or OAuth. Once you have the permission, you can provide that permission to your agent. The agent will verify that your permission is valid, and you have access to actually invoke the agent. Remember, this agent, because these pieces of AgentCore can be consumed independently, the agent itself can be hosted on AgentCore runtime, or it can be hosted elsewhere, and you still can use AgentCore identity. That's what we call agent inbound authentication. Now, what is an outbound authentication is now that your agent is running, and let's say your agent needs permissions to call an AWS resource. Let's say your agent is calling a database. what AgentCore Identity allows you to do is to also have outbound authentication. So you can configure that your agent should go and talk to the identity to require and retrieve the IAM permission to then call AWS resources. But that can also be, you can see 3 different types of outbound authentication. Another outbound authentication could be an external resource, either through an API key or potentially through a flow 2-leg or 3-leg OAuth flow. Let's say you want to go and you're going to talk to Salesforce. That will be an external resource. And I'm going to pause here because I'm going to talk in a moment what AgentCore Gateway is. But another way to do is to integrate an outbound authentication with your AgentCore Gateway. So AgentCore Identity allows you to seamlessly create solutions for your inbound and outbound authentication in production for the agents. Now, we hear from a lot of customers that MCP has become so popular, but managing potentially hundreds of MCP servers can be very cumbersome. So what AgentCore Gateway allows you to do is to simplify tool development and integration. So AgentCore Gateway, the way you can think about it is it's a MCP server managed for you that you can very easily expose different tools that the MCP server will make available. So you can turn existing APIs. So if you have an open API Swagger schema, you can provide the endpoints through that open API scheme to AgentCore Gateway as a target, and automatically AgentCore Gateway will list that as an available tool. You can also create Lambda functions as targets for AgentCore Gateway, and those Lambda functions will then behave as MCP tools. And you can access thousands of tools through a standardized interface, which is AgentCore Gateway itself. I'll show you how it works in a moment. By default, AgentCore Gateway operates as a remote MCP server, and you are required to provide authentication to that AgentCore Gateway. So only people that have the proper authentication can call the MCP server, because they have an endpoint that is available either through the internet or through, in the future, through your VPC, and you will be able to combine that. And also, one of the capabilities that is pretty cool, it allows you to do intelligent tool discovery, and I'll show you in a moment how that works. So you have an MCP client, which is your agent or your IDE. You're going to create a gateway within AgentCore Gateway. That gateway automatically will behave as an MCP server. The beauty is, behind the scenes, you can create different targets. So one gateway can have multiple targets, and one target can have multiple tools. So one of the target type that is supported right now is the API endpoint. So you provide your open API schema, and whatever other endpoints that we have available, AgentCore will automatically convert that into tools. So as an agent or an MCP client, you can very easily now consume your existing APIs as tools into your agentic system. The other option is you can create a Lambda target, and you can build your own code, which whatever programming language that Lambda supports and you have a preference, to build tools itself. So you can write code and build more complex tools through Lambda functions. So that is how AgentCore Gateway works at a high level. Now, one of the amazing capabilities of AgentCore Gateway is what we call semantic search, which is a very unique and cool feature that AgentCore has. By default, because it's just using the MCP protocol, if you go and you do the list tools request to your MCP server, which is the AgentCore Gateway behind the scenes, and you have hundreds, in this case, 360 tools, when you do list tools into the AgentCore Gateway, it's going to return all the 300 tools. That is really not good practice. And why it's not good practice? I'm going to talk about that in a moment. One of the capabilities that AgentCore Gateway allows you to do is to do a semantic search on AgentCore Gateway. So AgentCore Gateway will create its own knowledge base of all the tools that you have, and you can call an API on AgentCore Gateway, say, hey, my agent now wants to create a social media post. Go and find the tools that you have across these 360 tools that are able to do that. In this case, it returns 4 relevant tools and you provide to the large language model. Now, what are the benefits to do this? First is AgentCore Gateway automatically indexes the tools and gives a serverless semantic search. Think about a small RAG system for your tools. But most important, if you're doing the search, it allows you to reduce the context that you're passing for every single agent's large language model, which is going to improve your accuracy, speed, and cost. Because the more tools you provide, the less accuracy you have, the slower it is, and the more costly it is, because you are going to get charged by how many tokens you are providing as inputs. And what allows you to do, it allows you to improve the agent focus, because it's only focusing on the tools that are given for that specific task. So moving forward, another primitive on AgentCore is AgentCore memory. So memory is a very important aspect of agents, which allows you to save maybe interactions that you have with the agent for future use. That might be maybe history, like raw history between user and agent, or potentially some preferences, what we call, there is this differentiation on AgentCore memory of short-term memory versus long-term memory. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But AgentCore memory is built for enterprise by default. So you have a completely data privacy with dedicated storage for each customer. You can create a specific namespaces that only specific customers can have access. You can bring your own encryption to it. So if you have multiple customers and you want to encrypt the data differently across customers, you can do that. And you have deep customization. If you want to bring what we call long-term memory, you can define memory patterns based on your use case, and you can extract rules and customize those rules that are being done asynchronous. How does that work? The first concept on AgentCore memory is what we call short-term memory. So you have your agent and you're having conversation with your agent, so user message and response from the large language model and the specific state. What you can do is you implement an integration with AgentCore memory that you're saving those messages into the short-term memory space. You can store short-term memory for up to 365 days, and you can customize how long the specific messages are going to be stored for. Once you have short-term memory, you can then, of course, once a new invocation of your agent is spun up, you can retrieve the API for AgentCore memory to retrieve maybe the last day or all the memory that you have on short-term memory into your existing conversation. That's one type of memory. The other type of memory, which is very powerful, is what we call the long-term memory. So the raw messages are useful at some point, but actually what you want to do in the long term is extract specific long-term memories, right? And when you have a short-term memory, you can decide if you want to also enable long-term memory. And behind the scenes, AgentCore memory will asynchronous automatically extract pieces of memory to be saved on long term. You can specify, so you can do semantic where you specify what type of memory you want to extract for long term. You can provide user preferences. So let's say I go on my agent and I always say color blue. Behind the scenes, AgentCore memory will extract that and that will be saved as a preference. Or you can provide summaries. So let's say every day after the agent does some type of work, it goes and summarizes the work has done and save as long-term memory. Then the long-term memory can be retrieved and you can provide those memories, long-term memories, as part of new invocations. Because remember, large language models don't remember memory by default from past interactions. You are responsible in providing that, and AgentCore memory allows you to do that. And you can see, okay, that's what I want to show. The next capability is AgentCore browser. So it's the ability for you to use a automated serverless browser infrastructure if your agent needs to use. So let's say you want to build an agent and you want the agent to literally use a browser. Let's say you want to build an agent that can buy items from Amazon.com. If the agent needs to use a browser, and there are different tools that support this capability of navigating a browser using a large language model. I'm going to show you some of the tools, some of the models and open source libraries that allows you to do that. But you always need to have the compute for your specific browser. AgentCore browser is a tool that is available on AgentCore that allows you to have a very low latency browser. It can scale from 0 to hundreds of concurrent sessions which each session is going to create its own browser and not share any data across the other sessions. And also you can do proper secure credential handling. You can also do live streaming URL for monitoring. So if you want to show the user what your agent is doing and clicking buttons, you can do the live streaming URL and embedding to your application on how the browser is being used. You can do session replays for debugging, and you can do very extensive logging for all the browse commands that have been done through CloudTrail if enabled. Now, how does it work? As a user, if you have an agent and you say buy shoes on Amazon, you need to have a large language model. The large language model can be Nova Act, it can be Nova, it can be Claude, it can be many other things. You create a tool. That tool is you need to build, or you can use open source tools such as Browser User and a few other open source libraries that are there. But what the tool use will be, you'll be explaining how to use the browser into this specific large language model. So you translate the tool call into instruction commands using Playwright library or Browser User library. Once you translate, then that execution environment where you see headless browser or hosted library server is specifically where AgentCore will be running. And you can run multiple invocations for the sessions right there. So very powerful because it allows you to completely remove the necessity of you managing the browser itself and just give that specific power to AgentCore browser, and you can focus on the end goal of your agent, in this case, navigating Amazon.com. Another tool that is made available as part of AgentCore, and you can pick and choose if you want to use it, is the ability to run code as part of a code sandbox. So models are really good at trying to solve problems by generating code, but you always need to have some place to run the code. You can execute this code securely using AgentCore code interpreter because it creates this isolated sandbox compute environment that you can run code, check for the results, run code again, download the outputs. It can process gigabytes of scale data sets efficiently if you're using S3 integration and without any API limitation. It's very easy to use because it has pre-built execution runtimes for JavaScript, TypeScript, Python with common libraries pre-installed. You can customize that. And the way it would work and the way it would look is you have an agent, and that agent has a large language model, and you give a tool selection to create a session or code interpreter. So you create an agent that gives a tool to execute code, and that code will be executed on code interpreter. You write some API integration with AgentCore code interpreter. That code interpreter will have a file system and shell, and the large language model now can generate code, run code on code interpreter. The beauty of this is completely isolated and secure by default. So even if you have some hackers trying to export some vulnerability on your agent, if they go on code interpreter, there is no root access. There is nothing they can do to share any data across any other session that code interpreter is doing. And of course, you can explore the telemetry with Observability, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Now, the last but not least is the ability for you to monitor everything that is happening. AgentCore Observability allows you to provide a comprehensive end-to-end visibility into your agent orchestration system. It allows you to accelerate the debugging and audits by using the primitives that you pick and then exposing the metrics and logs into AgentCore Observability. The cool thing here is if you are already a CloudWatch user, you can use very quickly pre-built dashboards, traces that AgentCore Observability brings. But if you don't want to use CloudWatch or you use some other type of monitoring systems, what you can do is you can export the logs as OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is an open standard that is commonly used and accepted across multiple observability systems. And that with that OpenTelemetry, you can just expose that to whatever monitoring system. If, let's say, in case you don't want to use CloudWatch, but if you want to use CloudWatch, you can see the first image, AgentCore Observability dashboards is built on CloudWatch, and you can see the traces. You can see every single call that it was made to your model, every single tool that it was used, and you can see the whole tracing automatically being done. So the way it works, you have AgentCore Observability that integrates with, of course, agents running on AgentCore runtime, memory using AgentCore memory, tools for an AgentCore gateway, browser for an AgentCore browser, code interpreter for code interpreter. And whatever you pick and choose, you can just integrate into AgentCore observability and use the benefits either on CloudWatch or if you want to expose logs into other systems, you can do that as well, as you can see here. Now, we talked about the features. This is the whole ecosystem of AgentCore, right? So it allows you to pick and choose either the whole ecosystem of specific features like AgentCore runtime or AgentCore gateway and build your agents with less burden on the security, the scalability, the monitoring, the reliability, the cost as well, because everything you've seen here is pay as you go and scale from 0 to as many as you needed given your demand. So this is the whole ecosystem of AgentCore. As of now, today is September 5th as I'm recording this session. AgentCore is in preview, hopefully soon will be GA, and you'll be able to build production grade agents on AWS using whatever framework you want, using whatever models you want. And then some things that are coming soon is, of course, A2A are coming soon. So agent-to-agent integration right now is not supported as a protocol. Will be coming soon for a specific, I think, runtime. It will be an example that will be supported A2A. The frameworks, CrewAI, LangGraph, LangChain, Strand Agents, and many. But of course, you have the AgentCore capability. The whole Bedrock ecosystem is pretty big. You have the ability to access models on demand. You have the ability to do optimization and caching of those models. You can create and fine-tune your models. You can bring guardrails. You can create automatically manage RAG databases with Bedrock knowledge base. I highly recommend you look into knowledge base if you have a retrieval augmented generation RAG use case. So AgentCore comes into very good position to contribute to the whole Bedrock ecosystem. And what I would recommend you, if you are interested, here are a couple QR codes that you can pause the presentation and scan. I really recommend you look at AgentCore samples. You redirect you to a GitHub repository where you're going to be able to actually see multiple tutorials and use cases using the different capabilities of AgentCore. So if you're interested in AgentCore gateway, you can navigate to the GitHub repository and you can see very specifically how to implement the code. You can see the code, you can see the different use cases, you can see the different tutorials. And of course, our AgentCore documentation and the AgentCore blog post. Without further ado, thank you so much for watching for my presentation. If you have any questions, again, my name is Samuel Baruffi. You can find me on LinkedIn at just @SamuelBaruffi, and you'll be able to find me there. You can connect if you have any questions about AgentCore, and I'll be available to answer any questions. Thank you so much. Enjoy Conf42 MLOps, and I will see you around. Bye-bye.